Imagine a crop so nutritionally perfect that the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, has officially crowned it a complete food. It balances carbohydrates, proteins, and fats so precisely that a human being could theoretically survive on it alone. Scientists praise it as the crop of the new millennium, and they even call it a superior, drought-proof replacement for the peanut. Yet if you walk down the aisle of any American grocery store, it is nowhere to be found. This is not a case of a crop that failed because it was weak or because it tasted bad. In fact, it is celebrated for a nutty, earthy flavor that many prefer over the peanut. It was abandoned because it refused to play by the rules. We are talking about a food source that thrives in sand, laughs at drought, and creates its own fertilizer. Yet for the last century, it has been treated as a ghost crop. This is the story of the Bambara Groundnut, the subterranean treasure that sustained civilizations for millennia, and the colonial economics that buried it. Welcome to Ancestral Yields. If you believe that our future food security lies in the forgotten crops of the past, make sure to like this video and subscribe. To understand the Bambara groundnut's disappearance, we have to go back to where it began. Long before the global trade routes were drawn, this legume, Vigna subterranea, was the nutritional backbone of West Africa. Its domestication history centers around the ancient agricultural hubs near Timbuktu in modern-day Mali and northeastern Nigeria, stretching back at least 2,000 years. For the Bambara people, a major Mandi ethnic group for whom the nut is named, this was not a snack. It was a lifeline. Historically, it was known as the woman's crop. While men often farmed the labor-intensive cereal grains like sorghum and millet, women cultivated Bambara groundnuts to ensure household security. It was the ultimate insurance policy. If the rains failed and the sorghum withered, the Bambara groundnut, safe beneath the soil, would still produce a harvest. This ancient wisdom has recently been validated by the highest levels of modern food science. The Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Health Organization have analyzed this crop and officially recognized it as a complete food. This is a specific biological distinction. Unlike maize, which needs beans to be complete, or cassava, which is mostly starch, the Bambara groundnut contains the holy trinity of nutrition, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, in a ratio that can sustain human survival in near isolation. This modern classification explains a profound historical practice. In many West African traditions, Bambara groundnuts were buried with the dead. The logic was simple and striking. If the soul needed sustenance for the journey to the afterlife, only the most complete, reliable food would suffice. But the Bambara groundnut did not stay confined to Africa. Centuries ago, during the tragic era of the transatlantic slave trade, seeds were carried to the Americas, to Brazil, Suriname, and the American South, braided into the hair or hidden in the pockets of enslaved people. In the United States, it was grown in secret garden plots alongside the more famous peanut, also called goober. It served as a vital survival ration for those in bondage. The first major hurdle that stopped the Bambara groundnut from conquering the Western world was simple mechanics. It is the problem of the shell. If you have ever shelled a peanut, you know the satisfaction of popping open that thin, papery, brittle hull. It is effortless. Industrial machines can process millions of peanuts an hour because the shell yields easily to pressure. The Bambara groundnut, however, is armored. It has a notably hard, thick shell that clings tightly to the seed. In the early days of mechanized agriculture, Machines designed for peanuts would simply jam or crush the valuable seed inside when trying to crack a Bambara pod. Furthermore, unlike the peanut, which is high in oil and stays relatively soft, the Bambara groundnut is lower in fat and higher in starch and protein. If stored for long periods in hot, humid conditions without climate control, the beans can become stone hard. Preparing them becomes a labor of love, requiring hours of boiling and significant amounts of firewood to soften them enough to eat. In a village setting where food preparation was a communal, rhythmic part of daily life, this was manageable. The nuts would be pounded into flour or boiled fresh before they hardened. But to an industrial food scientist in the 20th century, looking for efficiency and speed, this was a fatal flaw. But the processing issues were only part of the story. The true death knell came from the explosion of the Industrial Revolution in Europe and America. The colonial powers occupying West Africa, the British, the French, and the Germans, were not looking for crops to feed the local populations. They were looking for commodities to feed the empire. This is where the Bambara groundnut lost the war to the peanut. The nutritional profiles determined the economic destiny of these two crops. The peanut, Arachis hypogaea, is an oil bomb. It is composed of roughly 45 to 50% oil. You can crush it and get massive volumes of liquid gold. The Bambara groundnut, by contrast, contains only about 6 to 12% oil. It is a food, not a fuel. Colonial agricultural departments looked at the ledgers and made a cold calculation. They implemented taxes and trade policies that aggressively incentivized farmers to grow peanuts for export. They built railways specifically to transport groundnuts from the interior to the coast. The complete food that had fed the village for 2 millennia was pushed to the margins, grown only in garden plots for survival, while the oil crop that fed the European factories took over the prime agricultural land. However, what the colonial powers dismissed as defect is exactly what makes the Bambara groundnut a nutritional miracle today. Most legumes, like soy, are protein-heavy but lack energy. Most grains, like maize, are energy-heavy but lack protein. Bambara sits perfectly in the middle. It consists of roughly 63% carbohydrates for sustained energy, 19 to 24% protein for muscle repair, and 6.5% fat for nutrient absorption. But the real magic lies in the amino acids. Most legumes, including the peanut and the soybean, are deficient in an essential amino acid called methionine. Without methionine, your body cannot effectively use the protein you eat. It is the limiting factor in a plant-based diet. This is why vegetarians are told to combine beans with rice. Bambara groundnut is a rare exception. It is unusually rich in methionine, containing roughly 1.78 grams per 100 grams of protein, nearly double that of some common beans. When you combine Bambara groundnut with a cereal grain, the protein quality rivals that of animal meat. Let's look at the minerals. In a 100-gram serving, about 3.5 ounces, Bambara groundnuts are a powerhouse. While a standard peanut offers modest mineral content, red and black landrace varieties of Bambara contain nearly double the iron of the cream-colored types often found in markets, with levels reaching 4.9 milligrams to over 12 milligrams per 100 grams, depending on the soil. Zinc levels are equally impressive. While standard beans often struggle to provide zinc, Bambara groundnut samples have been measured with zinc concentrations ranging from 4 milligrams to 14 milligrams per 100 grams, a critical amount for immune function that rivals red meat. However, a caution is necessary here. The Bambara groundnut is not a raw snack. Like many legumes, including kidney beans and soy, it contains anti-nutrients such as trypsin inhibitors and tannins. These compounds can block nutrient absorption and cause significant digestive distress if consumed raw. To unlock its superfood status, heat is non-negotiable. The beans must be thoroughly boiled, roasted, or steamed to neutralize these compounds. Additionally, while it is botanically distinct from the peanut, individuals with severe peanut allergies should exercise extreme caution. Cross-reactivity is possible, and while some studies suggest it may be less allergenic, you should treat it with the same respect you would any other legume until you know how your body reacts. Today, the tide is turning. Climate change is making the traditional peanut belt of Africa and the American South too hot and too dry for consistent peanut yields. Industrial monocultures are thirsty, and the water is running out. This has forced scientists to look back at the crops they discarded. The Bambara Groundnut is currently being rebranded as a climate-smart superfood. Food tech companies are realizing that the hard shell can be bypassed by milling the beans into a flour. This flour is gluten-free, high-protein, and incredibly versatile, used in everything from probiotic milks to meat substitutes and dense, savory breads. For the American gardener, growing Bambara Groundnut is a way to future-proof your garden. It thrives in heat. In the United States, it grows best in USDA zones 8 through 11, the warm southern climates. However, if you live in a colder region like zone 6 or 7, you can still grow it by starting seeds indoors, about 4 to 6 weeks before your last frost, treating it like a long-season tomato. To plant them, treat them exactly like peanuts. They grow underground. Plant the seeds about 1 to 2 inches deep in loose sandy soil once the threat of frost is entirely gone and the soil has warmed. As the plants grow, they will send pegs down into the earth where the pods will form. They love heat and hate wet feet, so ensure your soil drains well. Mound soil around the base of the plant as it grows to encourage more pod production. Finding seeds can be the hardest part, as they are not yet in every garden center. You can source them from specialized heirloom vendors like True Love Seeds. Alternatively, check African diaspora grocery markets for raw dried beans, often labeled jug beans or earth peas. Those store-bought beans may not always germinate as reliably as fresh garden seed. The story of the Bambara Groundnut is a stark lesson in how we define value. Bringing this crop back is about survival in a hotter, drier future. It is about recognizing that the primitive crops of our ancestors were actually sophisticated technologies of survival. It is time to stop growing crops for factories and start growing crops for people. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more. See you in the garden.